I would like to call the Maplewood Planning Commission to order on Tuesday, October 15th. Roll call.
Lou Yang, present.
Fred Dom, present.
Paul Arbuckle, present.
Bill Kempe, present.
Alan Egan, present.
Looks like we're missing John and, oh, there's one other person missing.
Tushar.
Tushar, that's right. Okay. Approval of the agenda. Any corrections or additions?
Chair and Commission staff does not have any amendments to the agenda as presented.
Like a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alan,
Second.
by Fred. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed. Approval of the minutes. Any corrections or additions to the minutes?
We should do that.
Anybody catch anything, or?
Move for approval?
There's been a motion by
Second.
Bill, second by Fred. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed. Public hearing. Automotive Technology School at 2525 White Bear Avenue North, a conditional use permit amendment resolution. Staff?
Good evening, Chair and Commission. This evening, I have a request by Mr. Bernard Madowski to amend the conditional use permit for 2525 White Bear Avenue, also known as the Maplewood Place Retail Center. As you can see on your screen, that's an overview map. It's a 3-acre lot right across the street from the Goodwill store and bordered to the northeast by Maplewood Auto Mall. Now the site 2525 White Bear Avenue together with the Auto Mall 2529 White Bear Avenue has since 1988 received approval from the city to use the site as an automotive center for auto parts, sales, and vehicle repair. In 2014, the city received a request, because this was, it used to be one parcel. The city received a request to split up the lot, and so that was approved. However, the two lots are still bonded together. They're tied together by one conditional use permit and also a shared parking agreement between the two. The site is zoned as business commercial, and it is designated as commercial. According to the city code, schools or institutions of any educational nature are allowed within any zoning districts within the city, but they have to be through a conditional use permit. And that is why Mr. Madowski is here to ask to amend the existing CUP for 2525 White Bear Avenue that would allow a school to be operated in one of the suites in the building. So the applicant is proposing to use, all activities will be confined in 108, Suite 108. He is looking to teach automotive technology to vehicle owners, do-it-yourself mechanics, professional mechanics and technicians, and he's planning to operate Mondays through Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., Fridays and Saturdays 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then he's looking to do some few hours in the future on Sundays between 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. Now, one of the conditions for the existing CUP for the site is that whenever there is a change of use in one of the suites, an updated parking plan be submitted to staff for approval. And so what you see on your screen is an updated parking plan, which is not in your packet, unfortunately, because it was not received earlier. But the applicant would be assigned 10 parking spaces. According to the city code for schools, one parking space, a minimum of one parking space is required for every 20 auditorium seats. There's currently 4 other businesses: Parks Auto, Fleet Automotive, Ken's Auto, and I believe Champs. And these are active businesses. There are 3 vacant spaces in the building. Our staff was also analyzing parking needs for the proposal. We also looked at it in terms of what if this was another auto repair. Now, according to the city code for an auto repair shop, for every service stall, 2 parking spaces are required. Now, for this suite, 2 service stalls would fit into the stall, and so that means that 2 parking spaces will be needed, an additional parking space for every employee that will be on site. And so if we estimate an auto repair with employees of about 2 to 4. That would be parking spaces of about 6 to 8, which means that it puts them way above what the minimum requirement is for the site. Now, the city code requires that when we're reviewing CUP requests, we make sure that 9 standards are met, including not depreciating property values, not significantly changing the existing character of the neighborhood, not causing environmental effect, minimal environmental effect, adequate public facilities and others which are all outlined in your packet. Staff finds that all these standards will be met with this proposal. We also, in putting together a report and reviewing the request, we sent out a survey and also notified property owners about today's public hearing. We received 4 responses. Today is a Planning Commission public hearing, and City Council would review this possibly on October 28. So with that, staff is recommending approval to allow an amendment to the existing conditional use permit for the site to allow a school, an automotive technology school, to be located at 2525 White Bear Avenue with conditions that the applicant comply with all the requirements of the building official, and also the City Council would review this permit in 1 year. The applicant is here. He can stand for questions. Staff can also respond to questions you have. Thank you.
How is the parking designated to the other tenants there? Because I know there's always hard to park in there.
So the parking will be based on the service stalls that are within the suite. That's how it's calculated from the city code. So based on the number of service stalls you have, you will be required to have a certain amount, a minimum amount of parking.
Okay, but do all the other tenants know that? Because the amount of cars that are always there, there always seems to be not enough parking. So I'm kind of wondering about the amount that each tenant has designated. Are they over those limits so that there's more room? I guess that's my question.
Chair and Commissioner, I'll just jump in. The parking plan that's in front of you on the screen that was also included with your staff report is how the applicant, the property owner, not tonight's applicant, but the property owner allocates parking. And this goes back to when the original CUP was granted and a parking plan when the 2 sites were still joined. Now that the auto mall is separate from the retail building that you're looking at, it's not a retail building, but they call it one. Now that the sites are separated, there still is a cross-access and parking easement agreement between the 2 properties, and that's how the parking plan is allocated for each of the users. And that's why Jane mentioned needing to receive an updated plan before the project can move forward, and that's what we would be seeking to get. So we have the applicant tonight is clearly represented on the updated parking plan, and that's what they would have to adhere to.
Okay.
What is the square footage of Suite 108?
It's 2,057, I believe. 2,097 square feet.
So about 2,100 square feet. Will this be a school all the time, or is it going to be school some of the time and a business some of the time?
Based on the applicant's proposal, it will be a school all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, could you give us the definition of school? This school will be teaching. We'll be teaching automotive and whatever it is. Is that the theoretical part or the practical part of it? Are you going to engage in the practical teaching? That is, you'll be using all kinds of stuff that is, together teaching automotive, like oil, gas, and whatever.
We'll be engaged in instruction with students. One of the things I noted on the hours, the initial hours of classes I anticipate are going to be in the evenings on Monday through Thursday and Saturday during the day. I noticed that we didn't have any hours for Monday through Thursday evenings, but those are good evenings for people that work during the day to attend school, to do the classes. We teach a 2-part class. First, we do what you might call theory or discussion in the classroom. Follow that up with actual practice on the vehicle. so that the people actually, they're not just sitting in the class, reading something or looking at something, they're actually going to get their hands dirty. So we're going to bring vehicles into the service bays, and then they're going to perform the very things we talk about in the class.
Okay, so there's a service bay attached in this suite, right?
We need the service bays because that's going to fulfill the major point of what we've been doing.
Now, you won't be doing any auto body work, right? Like, you know,
Auto body? No.
just mechanical.
My specialty and where I've started has been with electronics, computers, drivability, the high-tech part of the cars. The low-tech part is actually, I hate to use the word mundane, but it's something that has to be done, but it's something that people should know about, okay? But my emphasis in my career has been on the high-tech part, and the auto body is something we're not going to be doing anything with auto body, not planning on it. Not in the next year or two, probably 3 or more.
Is there a fee then to belong to the school too, or
Pardon me?
is there a fee?
Right now, I'm looking at what the fees are that we're going to be charging. I had planned on trying to make sure that our classes would be charging right between $10 and $20 per hour. So if we had a 4-hour class, the fee would be between $40 and $80 for a 4-hour class, $20 and $40 for a 2-hour class. I'm not exactly sure yet where that's going to work out. Our plans are to do a lot of video teaching, internet teaching. We're looking to set up classes where we actually have online classes where you can attend a classroom part in your home and interact with the instructor as we're going through this. These are all things that we want to do, and they're all potential, but in order to do any of this, I need to get a location where I can actually bring cars in and physically work on them, which is the holdup for the school. If I didn't need that, I could do it anywhere.
How many cars do you think you'll be working on at a time?
Classes will be limited to 12 students. In my past, as I've been teaching this, 12 students works very well because we can have 4 cars being worked on by 3 people at a time. One person can supervise the work that's going on, the other 2 can perform it. And rotating like that, each person gets to see what goes on, what is required to perform the job, while 2 people actually do the job. So we're looking at most, maybe 3 cars in the shop at a time, maybe 4. We're not talking a lot about a lot of cars going in and out. And during the day, the only cars that would be there would be cars that we would be filming, doing video on, things that we would be creating classes on, taking pictures of. So the actual traffic use on it is going to be very low. I expect it's going to be 2 months before we even have a class in the school once we open.
You did see in the conditional use that no outside work, that everything had to be inside?
Correct. That's not a problem.
'Cause I just want to make sure you don't get too many there and you start working outside.
No, I don't plan on anything being done outside.
Are the students, are they going to earn an accreditation then?
I'm working on that.
Okay.
I don't see being accredited as being a hard problem. Right now, the most important thing is I have a lot of people that have a lot of problems and they want solutions, and they're looking for classes. I have vehicle owners, I have do-it-yourselfers, and I have professional mechanics that they're looking to go somewhere to find out where they can get the information to solve the problems.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything?
Maybe staff could answer this question. What is the percentage of, in area of this project versus the entire auto repair facility on that site?
Percentage of what?
Area? What's the percentage of area, square footage of this? Not with the auto mall, but with the rest of the repair shops.
Chair and Commissioner, I don't know that we have that specifically broken out, but just eyeballing it, it appears to be about a tenth
A tenth?
of the
Okay.
overall center.
So then there'd be a the property taxes collected then would be affected by 10% on the site then. Because as a school, it would be, I think if you are accredited, I think then it would become a tax exempt property.
I'm looking at 501c3 as well, but
Yeah.
there are things that, when you get into 501c3 and accreditation, there are restrictions that need to be met. And I don't want the restrictions to restrict the school and restrict the education that we can give our students.
Yeah.
Chair and Commission, just to interject, property taxes aren't the direction of this commission, but the overall property owner is still, he's not owning the property, so I'm not sure that would have that kind of effect that you're going at. When you lease from a for-profit entity, that they'd
Well,
still.
I think I think the property owner could make a claim on it. It's just something that kind of popped into my head, and I know, we don't approve or disapprove of projects based on that. But I imagine that maybe some other people had that thought in mind, but it's.
No, just Joe.
It's only, just me, I guess. It's just, anyways, it's just 10% of the entire property, so
Yeah, a small part of it.
Yeah.
You've got
the
the,
county will not go broke over
yeah,
this. so.
you've got the conditional use permit up for review in a year. I don't foresee in the next year, in the next 12 months, once I open, of having anybody in there working besides myself. But if things grow as I expect they will, then at the end of the year, we'll be looking at, do we have enough room?
Yeah,
And if we need more room, then that, obviously, this location is not going to work.
okay. And my whole comments are only regarding property tax.
Sure.
Nothing about income. And so, well, for me, as somebody who's been struggling with his own vehicle recently, I think that it sounds like a good idea.
I am a licensed vocational instructor. I taught for a vocational school many years ago. And when I left vocational teaching, I left because I was very irritated with the attitude for vocational education. It was all about collecting tuition and handing out diplomas and nothing about the students learning anything. I went through a discussion with an administrator one day, and he told me, he says, Bernie, you don't need to teach the students what you're teaching them. He said, just teach them to get a trouble code and put on a part. I said, well, that would be good, but you don't understand. First of all, 90% of the cars with trouble codes, with problems, don't set trouble codes. So if all you're teaching them to do is get a trouble code and find the problem, that means 90% of the time, they're going to go to a mechanic, he's going to put a scanner on it, he's going to say, well, there's no trouble codes, there's nothing wrong with your car, I can't work on it. The other problem you have is of the trouble codes that do show up, 90% of the trouble codes are not the problem. They're telling you the symptom of the problem, not what's wrong. Good example is oxygen sensors. 98% of oxygen sensors that are replaced on cars are not necessary. They're just parts put on the car because the guys working on it don't know what they're doing. So what you end up with the trouble codes is people spending $500, $600, $800 or more on their cars to get their cars repaired. They pick the car up and go home, and it does exactly the same thing as when they took it in.
Yeah, I'm in agreement
Yeah,
with you.
Today this is
So-
rampant.
And I found that myself, I've been a student, a very good student of the University of YouTube.
Okay, yep.
So,
And YouTube, they've got some good stuff out there, but boy, there's a bunch of junk.
Have you talked with Ken at all? Any kind of relationship with Ken?
I've talked to Ken a little bit. I would say at this point, we have a good relationship. The biggest thing is right now, the biggest thing I need to do is get in to have a place to work. I've got so much to do. I've got the website up now, but there's so much content that we need to put on the website. We're going to be doing a lot of YouTube videos. One of the big things I'm working on is a thing I call down and dirty diagnostics. It is how anybody in this room can figure out what's going on with their car under certain conditions with no test equipment and just you and your car, maybe a set of jumper cables. It's a very simple way to locate problems that you could be faced with, that you could be stuck with out in the boonies somewhere. And I need a place to video this. I need a place to work on it.
Okay. I think everybody's, satisfied here? Thank you
I
for
am.
your time, and I think we'll move forward on this. Okay. Is this a public hearing too?
It is.
Okay.
Okay, one thing before I do leave, I would like it amended though on those hours, because when we do hold classes, they're probably going to be Monday through Thursday evenings, and they'll be from 6 to 9 or 7 to 10.
What is there are limitations on the lateness, I know. Do you know what that?
Chair and Commission, actually, the existing CUP does not limit hours either way. So we have a noise ordinance after 7 PM. So if it's internal to the building and it's not causing a noise issue, we wouldn't look to limit the hours. So I know the staff report mentioned hours, but that wasn't constraining the applicant either way. That was, I guess, assuming we got that information from the applicant, but we'd be happy to update the hours.
Because I know the closest house is Carol Guzzo is the closest house to their, she butts up to the back of that kind of.
Yeah,
so.
also, I know from previous amendments to the CUP on this property that, that one of the conditions we put in place is that all work has to be done behind closed doors, so that the roll-ups have to be down. So that pretty much eliminates any problem with sound.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Last and final call? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. We'd like to make a motion.
I would. I would move that we approve the conditional use permit resolution to include what is in our packet, attachment 1. And,
Conditions 1 to 32.
well, that would be the entire attachment 1. Anything else I need to have in there? So that's it.
Was the hours indicated on that, or that's not on the hours? That was just.
Well, it's never been an issue here because it's never been part of the initial CUP.
Okay, I was just covering to make sure that it was covered
Yep.
because he brought it up, so,
I thought about that, but
okay.
then I'd have to
There's
figure.
been a motion by Bill. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Lou. Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed. This is just a recommendation by us. This will go before city council on
Tentatively October 28th.
October 28th. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are at number 2, Frost English Village Commercial Retail Building, 1905 English Street North. Part A, conditional use permit resolution, and B, lot division. Staff?
Thank you, Chair and Commission. Sherman Associates is proposing 8,200 square foot commercial building at the intersection of Frost and English. That would be the third and final phase of the Maplewood Bowl redevelopment project. The applicant needs 3 city approvals to move forward: conditional use permit, lot division, and design review. This group, the Planning Commission, will be looking at the conditional use permit and lot division, which are items A and B on your staff report, which start on page 1 and float to page 2. Earlier this evening, the CDRB looked at design review and recommended approval. The City Council will make the final decision on this project, scheduled for October 28th. Do want to upfront mention the lot division request that is being made. The applicant is purchasing the existing liquor store property, which is west of the project site, and their intention is to demolish that existing building and incorporate the property into their overall site plan. In terms of the conditional use permit, a drive-through is permitted in the mixed-use zoning district with that conditional use permit. The proposed drive-through would be just on the east side of the building and would be screened from the Frost English roundabout intersection to the southeast. In addition, the applicant is seeking a parking waiver of sorts. The building on its own, if a commercial building requires 1 parking space for every 200 square feet, thus 42 spaces would be required. The project is providing 44 additional parking spaces to the site. We know that the applicant is interested in potential coffee or cafe user to be on the east tenant space. So we wanted to go through the exercise. If that were the case, what would that do to parking? I'll again mention commercial is 1 to 200 square feet. For restaurants or cafes, coffee shops, it's one space for every 50 square feet that a patron has access to. So we ran through an exercise where the new Starbucks that just opened here at County Road B and White Bear Avenue next to the City Hall campus, we applied that floor plan to this site, and if they were to operate there, there would be a shortage. That would increase the overall parking requirements to 61 spaces, creating a shortage of 17 spaces. To add to the mix, Phase 2, this senior housing building built to the north included 24 additional parking spaces that were built on this Phase 3 site with the intention that they would be shared parking. Those 24 spaces are not part of the 44 I had previously mentioned. So when you add those two together, we would have sufficient parking in terms of the numbers, but we wanted to memorialize the shared parking and parking waiver within the conditional use permit itself, allowing the applicant the flexibility if a coffee or cafe user is ultimately located to this building, that they would be able to move forward on existing approvals. Another component that the applicant is requesting conditional use permit approval for is an increased front yard setback. This differs from other zoning districts where this is a conditional use. Mixed use district requires commercial buildings to be set back anywhere from 0 to 10 feet from the property line. The Phase 1 building that the applicant built is set back 20 feet. It's a multifamily building. Multifamily is allowed to be set back at a maximum of 20 feet, so that is allowed by code. The proposed site plan, the building is on the commercial building, is set back to be at 23 feet. The applicant is desiring this building to be have a setback consistent with Phase 1 and to allow a service sidewalk. Staff is recommending requiring pushing this building 3 feet closer to have that setback be 20 feet. That is an item design review board also discussed earlier this evening, and the applicant was agreeable to seeing that 20 feet being represented on a revised site plan. Speaking of that site plan, some other elements. Again, the building is located at the Frost English Roundabout intersection. I already mentioned the liquor store being purchased and incorporated into the site. No new access points are being provided with this Phase 3. They will access Frost and English from the existing access drives that were built as part of phases, really Phase 1, but serve Phase 1 and 2. On landscaping, the applicant will plant 14 new trees this site and numerous shrubs also planted throughout the site. There is a trash enclosure that I'll highlight to the east of the building within the island where the drive-through would circle through. So you can see within that island, the circles indicating the plantings, and then the darker rectangles where the trash enclosure would be located. Staff is recommending that the applicant be required to submit building materials and colors to staff before any permits are issued to ensure compatibility with the main building. This is a rendering of the building as proposed, and I will leave it here at this point and just mention that the Design Review Board did go have an extensive discussion this evening on the proposed materials and ultimately recommended approval of the proposed building with some minor alterations to the brick patterns. I will mention the applicant, or the city sent out notices of the public hearing and neighborhood surveys to property owners within 500 feet. That comprises of 29 property owners, and we received one response from a local business owner that was detailed in your staff report. The applicant is present to answer questions and talk further about the building, and staff can stand for questions as well, but staff is recommending approval of items A and B, approving the conditional use permit and the lot division. Thank you.
Now, remember when we were doing the parking on Building 2, that we had to use some of the parking in that area because they had to add some more parking there. Now, is that still compatible with them taking any of those spots, that there's still going to be enough with Phase 2? Or is it this additional, or how is that working?
Chair and Commission, it's those 24 extra spaces that I was talking about that were added to the Phase 2 plan. When they were added to the site plan, it was intended to be shared parking with the third phase. the third phase is being proposed, if it's a commercial retail building, no cafes, no restaurants, it meets its parking requirements on its own. We're just throwing those 24 parking spaces, again, that were intended to be shared, into the mix for that single restaurant potential user, if that's where ultimately someone that gets leased in that.
As long as they don't add the cafe. Is a restaurant and a cafe the same amount of square footage?
It
50?
is, yeah. So I'm probably using cafe, restaurant, and coffee shop, but they're meant to be interchangeable. It's the same parking ratio.
Okay.
So are we allocating enough parking for 2 restaurants on this site then?
Chair and Commission, no. So that's, staff, because we're dealing with unknown, we felt comfortable building in flexibility for one user. And so if another user came by, we'd have to do those parking counts, and if they didn't, depending on how much space they're leasing, what type of restaurant it is, if it's just pick up and go, so a customer only can be in the front lobby, or if it's a sit-down restaurant, those square footages change depending on what type of restaurant it would be. So we'd have to analyze based on what got ultimately proposed, and it's definitely conceivable that they would have to come back to revise the conditional use permit for a parking waiver, depending on the mixture of users.
Go ahead, Bill.
Then, has parking ever been an issue for Phase 2? It's been a few years now since,
Chair and Commission, no, there has not been any.
have they needed the
there-
extra 24 spaces?
Chair and Commission, you'll see that those 24 parking spaces get used, but they're also not restricted, so they're free use parking spaces at this point.
Okay.
I do want to mention too that Phase 1 met its parking requirements, just to add to the discussion, so we're not accounting for any parking from the multifamily building, just really the senior building and this commercial building that we're looking at the potential of some shared parking. And again, with the conditional use permit requirement or being applied to this site, if parking issues develop, we can use that as an instrument to continue that discussion with the applicant to seek resolution.
Okay, so if they want to have 2 food establishments there, it comes back to us again.
Chair and Commission, it just depends on the parking count. And so it really, when that one space for every 50 square feet of patron use, it's going to really depend on what type of restaurant or
Right.
coffee shop it would be. So if it's a coffee shop that you can't even go into and you just go through the drive-through, then there's not going to be much of a
Okay.
parking requirement.
That's clear.
They can always park on the roof.
Sure.
Space, I mean.
Now, what about the water? Is there enough, the drainage from the parking lot, is there enough for the other filtering pond that they built there? Everything's going to drain into that from there too, or?
Chair and Commission, yeah, as this was a unified site plan, that's why much of the infrastructure is built in Phase 1. So all the stormwater calculations are being met between the 3 phases.
No, in the principal plans for the Savannah there, it says about walkability. Is that, putting a drive-through, is that going to be against kind of our principles for the standards for that, or with having the drive-through?
Chair and Commission, as you may recall, it was just a few years ago that the city added in the drive-through component and to add flexibility to the mixed-use district. You may have the view or knowledge of that the only development that's occurred in Maplewood's mixed-use district is this project. Since the city adopted a mixed-use zoning district, there has not been any other developments. So we wanted to look at our ordinances and see how we could tweak some language to help facilitate additional development. That ultimate request did not come from this developer, but they were supportive of the city considering that addition. We do feel that the building still fronts frost, it still has the architectural elements that we're looking for, that it meets the overall intent of the Gladstone Master Plan.
Because, some of the cities are eliminating, new projects with no drive-throughs. I mean, that's kind of another thing that I don't think it's reasonable, but.
Sure, Chair and Commission, yeah, the urban context and design context of this site and neighborhood is I would venture vastly different than the areas that you're referencing.
Right. Did anybody else, questions for staff? Did the representative want to come up?
Hi there, Chair and Commission. My name is Shane Lefebvre with Sherman Associates, the developer and applicant on the project. I want to thank you for your consideration here, that we kind of see this as the third and final phase of this development that we undertook 4 or 5 years ago now. And so both of the other two buildings, the multifamily and the 55-plus building, are both full. They leased up quickly, and the residents are happy to be there. And also excited to see kind of this third phase kind of wrap up and solidify the corner there on Frost and English. So happy to answer any questions that you have, but thank you for your consideration.
Do you have any proposed tenants as of now yet, or is it still just all open?
As of now, our plan is to relocate the existing liquor store. As part of that purchase, we're purchasing the land and building, but also the business and the rights to the business itself. So the plan would be to relocate that into the new building. As for other tenants within the building, as of now, we don't have anything signed up. We've received interest from some parties, but the first question has always been, when can we open? When's the building going to be done? And we didn't have a good answer. We now have a good answer, and we have a timeline. We are engaging a broker and hope to be signing some things up in the next couple of months here.
No, I know Mr. Borchard mentioned about competition. There's not going to be any meat market there, right?
Not that I'm aware of. Unless somebody presents themselves that has not yet, then that's not in the mix right now.
What do you think people don't drugs?
How much space are you going to be using, how much of the floor plan are you going to be using for the liquor store?
Should be about 2,000 square feet, maybe slightly less than that. So that's a little less than 25% of the building, so which leaves probably 2 or 3 other spaces within the building, depending on how much the other tenants would want.
Yeah, a couple guys were hoping on the demolition they were just going to give away the booze.
Nice.
Any other questions?
In terms of the landscaping and the shading for the drive-through area, is there any concern about the visibility as you're going kind of east towards Frost?
As far as wanting
That
people to know that
traffic
there is a
coming from the
drive-through there?
Yeah.
There's 2 different views on that. People don't want to look at drive-throughs. We want our business to make sure that people know that there are drive-throughs. I think we're kind of taking the position of we'd rather fall on the side of screening it and letting that business, as it establishes its customers, they'll come to understand there's a drive-through there. And so, as if there are cars in line, as much as we have landscaping, I'm sure you'll probably be able to see, especially in the winter, that there are cars there, and so you will see a visible drive-through. But we want to be considerate of everyone else who's driving by and who lives there, who doesn't necessarily want to look at a drive-through. So we will try to provide some pretty full landscaping there with the hope that the business will have an established base of customers who will know that there's a drive-through, and then you have the other seasons where there's no leaves and things, so you will be able to see that better.
What is the projection of the headlights to the Phase 2 building? Is there quite a distance there that would never shine into that building?
I don't know exactly how many feet that is, and if there are other cars parked in the lot, that would help as well. But I don't know if we've considered that.
Are they even in line? I'm not sure of the whole layout there.
I don't know if it quite lines up or if it hits the pond as the cars would be pulling up to the window and facing north. There's a retention pond on the east side of the 55-plus building. I would have to see the overall bigger zoomed out site plan.
Sounds like it probably misses it. John, you think one? No?
I'm good.
I think pretty straightforward.
We tried to keep it simple,
Yep.
so thank
Good
you.
to know you now. You've been here a few times, right?
Yes, I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hearing? Public hearing.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? Is there anyone else? Last and final call? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
I'd like to make 2 motions. First, or can I do them both combined?
I think you have to do them one at a time, don't we? Or-
Well, sure, I'll do them one at a time. First motion is to approve the attached conditional use permit resolution for a drive-through window and increased building setback within the
mixed-use zoning district for a new commercial retail building at 1905 English Street North.
Okay, there's been a motion by Bill. Second. By John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing all ayes. This passed. Second.
Second one is motion to approve the lot division request to combine the parcels located at 1281 Frost Avenue East and 1905 English Street North. The lot division approval is subject to the following conditions, 1, which includes A and B.
There's been a motion by Bill. Second by Fred. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed. And this is just a recommendation. This goes before the city on the 28th. Okay, thank you. We are on number 3, Carver Elementary School addition and remodel at 2680 Upper Afton Road East. Number A, conditional use permit resolution. Staff.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. This is, request is regarding Carver Elementary School. The school itself is being proposed for a pretty substantial remodel and addition project, including the interior as well. This project is highlighted by a new 3-story academic wing. When you look at the footprint of today's building compared to what's being proposed, the building itself will increase, the footprint itself will increase by 31,500 square feet. But again, there is some height to the building being added as well. To move forward, the applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit amendment and design review. The Planning Commission is looking at item A, the conditional use permit amendment. That is highlighted on page 1 under recommended actions. Again, earlier tonight, the CDRB looked at design review and recommended approval. The conditional use permit, which is in place, educational institutions are allowed in any zoning district in the city with an approved conditional use permit. Looking at the site plan, the site existing has 3 access points to Upper Afton Road. The applicant is proposing to maintain 3 access points, but those access drives will be shifted and spread out throughout the site, as you can see on the site plan here. So bus traffic would be geared towards the east side of the site, and this the easterly access drive, and then parent drop off and pickup would be focused where this loop drive is located to the northwest portion of the site. In addition, the fire department is going to require a access drive to go from the parking lot to the south side of the building, where there is that's where the playground, all the playground equipment will shift to the south side of the building, and the fire department wants to make sure the emergency access vehicles could get access to that portion of the site. In terms of parking, the 2 parking lots, again, are focused on the north side of the site. The project will actually add 34 more spaces to the site for a total of 124 spaces. Code requires for schools, 1 space for every 20 auditorium seats. That really comes into play at like Hill Murray High School. This project far exceeds those parking minimums. In terms of landscaping, just for background, 48 trees are to be removed, and 116 new trees are to be planted. The tree removal still accounts for less than 20% of the overall trees coverage on the site. So tree replacement requirements are being met based on code requirements. In addition to trees, you can see 356 shrubs are to be planted. Lighting, this is something that the CDRB reviewed earlier this evening and has flexibility in terms of looking at design plans to allow taller poles in specific instances. So code has a maximum of 25-foot high poles, and the project is proposing 27-foot tall poles, and that's to provide the light and security coverage that the applicant is seeking throughout their site. But I will note in staff's review, we confirmed, A, that the photometric plan is being met, so all city code requirements are being met as far as light intensity at property lines, and that we don't feel that there's a concern for the neighbor single-family homes to the north side of Upper Afton. You can see this is a rendering of the building itself. Again, the design board got into the details of the building itself, and again, recommended approval. But to focus here on the conditional use permit, staff is recommending approval of the amendment as before you tonight. The applicant is here to talk more specifically about the project, and both of us can answer any questions the commission may have. Thank you.
Now, what about the impervious surface there? Is there not any calculations that we need to worry about on this, or?
Chair and commission, no, it's not in a shoreline overlay, so there are no, there's not a maximum per se. They are increasing impervious surface. That does have implications on stormwater.
Right.
And I know the applicant mentioned at our previous meeting this evening that that's why you see the building going higher instead of out, so that they can limit the amount of impervious surface. But all stormwater management is being handled on site.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Did the applicant want to come up?
Yes, I'm Troy Miller with LHB Architects and Engineers, representing the district this evening, and we appreciate the time and effort that you're taking to review the project. I think the district is proud of what's being done across all of the buildings within the district, and specifically at Carver Elementary School. This will be a totally different image, totally different look, and part of what they're hoping to do is continue to evolve and change the image that the district is putting forward in terms of not only the quality of the building, but more importantly, the quality of the education inside.
What is the length of time you think it'll take to get this whole project done?
The building is going to be constructed while kids are in the building the entire time. So we are planning to start construction in March, and we will conclude construction the fall of 2022.
Do I dare ask how much it's going to cost?
About $34 million.
Looks beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
The plans didn't show very clearly where the existing building was and how the new building is going to be built. Anything that you can shed any light on that?
I'm not sure if you could scroll back to the site plan. So right now, the three-story wing that goes off to the southwest side of the building, it's the piece that's kind of turned at 45 degrees. That's the three-story portion of the building. So that area does not have any structure on it currently. And so the intent is to build that portion of the structure. When it's done, all the students and staff will be moved to the new portion of the building. And currently, if you're familiar, there is a two-story structure that goes directly north on the right-hand side. And that portion of the building would be torn down to make room for a brand-new kitchen cafeteria across the front of the building, as well as the parking lot and a portion of the bus loop. So on the front of the building, the north side of the building, which the public will see, almost every lineal foot of the facility will be brand new.
Any other questions? I think it's pretty simple.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this? Is there anyone that would like to speak? Last call, seeing none. The public hearing is closed. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
You're good at these tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
Well, I like to be dependable. I move that we approve the attached conditional use permit amendment resolution for a school in the Farm Residential Zoning District for a building addition and remodel to Carver Elementary School located at 2680 Upper Afton Road East.
Second?
There's been a motion by Bill, second by Alan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed. This is just a recommendation. Is this going on the 28th too, Mike? Okay, on the 28th of October. Thank you. Thank you. Public hearing number 4, Elm Creek Senior Housing Facility at 1534 County Road C East. Comprehensive Plan Amendment, B, Planned Unit Development Resolution, and C, Lot Division. Staff.
Chair and Commission, thank you. As we look at the screen as I briefly outline the proposed project, Elam Care is proposing a new 141-unit senior housing facility that would be just under 194,000 square feet, located at the existing community garden site at County Road C and Hazelwood. The community gardens on the southwest corner of that intersection. The overall site current day is just over 17 acres. The senior building would comprise just over 7 acres of that site. And then the remaining 10 acres would stay as community gardens as you know it today. And then First Evangelical Church, which is just north, actually you can see them on the site here, or on this map, just to the northeast corner of the overall map. Is the existing property owner will maintain ownership of the 10 acres as the community gardens continue on, but their ultimate plan is to relocate their church and build a new facility on those 10 acres. What that timeline is for the potential new church is up in the air, as the applicant can speak to later on tonight, but that is the ultimate intention, and that will be reflected in part of their request for approvals tonight, which include a comprehensive plan amendment, a planned unit development, lot division, and design review. This group is looking at those first 3 items. Design review was handled earlier this evening by Community Design Review Board. All 4 elements go to the City Council for final approval. In terms, we'll just address the lot division request. Currently, if you got a close look at the existing parcel lines, there is the overall site that you see with the dark red on the screen here. Internal, there's an existing house that sits on its own legal parcel. That house and that parcel would be removed, and then a new lot line would be drawn in, essentially north-south, to indicate the 2 phases of the project. A planned unit development is part of this request. That means a type of development characterized by a unified site design with 2 or more principal uses or structures. So again, the senior care facility and the existing community gardens as 2 uses that we want to ensure there's a unified site plan moving forward, and the future church use that we want to have this PUD govern when that church is ultimately proposed and built. The comprehensive plan is the overarching request for you tonight. The existing 2040 comprehensive plan guides this entire site as low-density residential. It's also zoned as single-dwelling residential. The applicant is proposing to re-guide the portion for the senior care facility to high-density, and then the remaining portion of the land to institutional, which is a semi-public type of land use category where all churches fall into, but there's other, like I mentioned, semi-public uses that also fall into that category. The proposed housing project with 141 units meets the density requirements of the high-density residential, which allows a max of 25 units per acre. In fact, they could have more units based on just that category in of itself. That doesn't take account site plan and other constraints, but just from a density land use component, they are not maxing out the sites that the comprehensive plan would allow if the site is re-guided to high density. A housing project does meet several of the comprehensive plan's housing goals. Those goals were outlined within the staff report and directly taken from the 2040 comprehensive plan. In terms of the planned unit development, we touched on some of these items already, but the proposed senior housing facility and the future church will share access to County Road C, as will the existing community gardens, thus necessitating a unified site plan between the multiple uses. Zoning ordinance, when considering PUDs, allows flexibility from strict ordinance compliance and for both internal and external design requirements, and we'll go through those in the next couple of slides here. The uses, again, proposed senior housing facility and that future church, which is not known as far as a date when that would occur. But community gardens that are larger than 1 acre in size do require a conditional use permit as well. Planned unit development in Maplewood is approved via a conditional use permit, so we want to build that aspect into this approval tonight. In addition, the parking waiver, we've seen with other senior care facilities, similar type of parking requests, parking waiver requests being made. The applicant can speak more directly to their experience in other facilities on why they believe this works here and for their specific proposal. But broadly, for what code would require, 141 units that's being proposed would require 282 spaces. Now, Maplewood counts a unit as a unit, but I think the applicant can shed more light on what there is some differences between the types of care that's being provided within the facility and how they would make distinctions between those units. But anyway, those 282 spaces, again, code would require half of them to be covered, meaning underground or in separate garage facilities. What the applicant is proposing are 74 surface spaces and 63 additional spaces that would be underground beneath the building. So all that information leads us to a waiver request of 145 spaces. What the planned unit development does allow the city to do is build in language that if additional parking is required, if a shortage develops, that the city has a tool to recommend or mandate that the applicant add additional parking. One item that got brought up during the design review board, I think would be a good item to consider inserting into the plan unit development is that the applicant should submit a site plan showing where proof of parking could be located based on where the existing drive access is off County Road C, so that we have a sense that if parking is required to be built at a later date, we would get a sense of how that would occur. Again, with the future church, however many years that might be down the road, the intention with this plan unit development and having a unified site plan is that there would be opportunities for shared parking once those facilities are both built and operating, as well as access points to the site. One other area that they are looking for flexibility is the floor area minimums for units. For the facilities independent living, 1 and 2 bedroom units, they're meeting those city requirements for minimums. So there's no flexibility being requested there. The city requires the same minimum 580 square feet for studio and 1 bedroom apartments. The applicant is requesting flexibility from that minimum for studio units, proposing at the smallest within, there is a range, but at its smallest, the unit would be 380 square feet. For its skilled nursing and transitional care units, again, this kind of reference back to, we as a city consider a unit, but from the care side of it, they would make distinctions. They're requesting approval with the plan unit development to have units from 380 to 710 square feet. Buildings over 3 stories, residential buildings over 3 stories require conditional use approval, so we are building that again into this plan unit development. At its tallest point, the building would be 40 feet. I should point out the 3-story component of the building is set back from County Road C, so it's at the south point of the site, and the portion of the building that is geared towards County Road C would be 1 story. Here is the overview of the site plan. You can see the courtyards built in between the wings and the trees and the shrubs and perennials that would be planted throughout the site. But I want to go back to how the site is accessed. The secondary access will start with on the west side of the site, would come back here and access the underground garage component. There's also a fire access lane that would go to the southern side of the building. The main access would be to the east of the building and come off County Road C, where there is potential for that to be a main access point, shared main access point to that future church when that is built. Do want to point out when the county, because County Road C is obviously a county road, when they reviewed this project, they have stated at this point in time, they do not foresee allowing any additional access points being added to County Road C when that church is built. But again, this main access point provides that opportunity for a shared drive, and the church would have the opportunity to propose access off Hazelwood Street when that project comes to the city. Now, we're making decisions on site plans that we see today. Part of the PUD also allows the city that says when the church does come for approval, the city and the planning commission and the city council at that time will get the opportunity to revisit this and see what makes sense at that time. Also, one other item, the city will require a photometric plan be submitted before any building permits are issued and must meet all city requirements. And that is a rendering of the building. The renderings and more specific detailed elevations were included with your plans if you wanted to get into those details. But again, you're looking at items A, B, and C, which all start on page 1 and go over to the top of page 2. Staff is recommending approval of those items A, B, and C. The applicant is present to answer any additional questions from the board. And I will mention, before I turn it back to you, Chair and Board, the applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting this late spring, invited property owners within 500 feet to attend that neighborhood meeting and discuss the project. In addition, the city sends out public hearing notices and neighborhood surveys, which we did to the 82 property owners within that 500 feet radius, and we received 7 responses that are outlined in your staff report. So with that, I will turn it back to you. Thank you.
The square footage on the studios, I guess I'm concerned that why would we want to go that much less comparison to what our standards are on that? Is that going to be a problem?
Chair and Commissioner, again, I know the applicant is approaching to add context to where they see that programming. I think what we should think about is that it's the same minimum for studio and 1 bedroom at 580, and for a senior care or for a senior housing facility, we have allowed lower minimums for both studio and 1 bedrooms in the past. Given that the 1 and 2 bedrooms were meeting the minimums for independent living, we felt more comfortable with that reduction in the studio, given that there's not a separate room for the bedroom, that it's, one cohesive unit within that floor space, that we felt comfortable moving forward with the applicant's request. But
Where have you allowed that in the past, Mike? Do you remember?
namely the Shores, which is a similar mix of care being provided between the memory care, independent living, and assisted. That's on East Shore Drive and Frost Avenue.
Has anybody taken into consideration the light rail or whatever they call that, the bus rapid transit thing? That's supposed to have a station right at that location?
Well, Chair and Commission, the proposed station is actually south of Harvest Park, more towards 36. And I know the property owner, John Anderton, is here tonight, has had direct conversations with the county as this project was initially being discussed before it was officially proposed, seeing if it made any sense to add a stop, move a stop. Ultimately, the county did not go in that direction. Okay. There's been further discussions about would there be an opportunity for a trail connection. There's some significant grades between County Road C and to get down to the Bruce Vento Trail. So there's some concerns on how that could work, but I think that dialogue will continue with the property owner and the county, but at this time, there's no proposed direct connections.
Anything else? You go ahead. You can come up then.
Haven't heard from him yet. I'm going
My name is Andrew Santani. I appreciate your time this evening, and Michael, thank you for doing a great job kind of laying out our project. Just briefly to kind of talk about the unit square footage, the 360, 380 square foot unit, studio unit, it's pretty common unit size. One of the things to take into consideration is a vast majority of those studio units are actually skilled nursing beds. There's 64 skilled nursing beds in the unit mix. 16 additional ones are AL memory care units. So that's a vast majority of the unit, studio unit count that has that lower square footage. So as Michael kind of alluded to, it has more to do with the care level than it being a senior facility. That's an overarching term. But when you get into the minutia of the level of care, those are actually very, very common square footages that you would find in those levels.
So what you are alluding to, if I may ask, is that there has been a reconfiguration between care and the, right?
Yes, yeah, you're seeing 141 units, but of those 141, we have a full continuum of care. We have transitional care, skilled care, AL memory care, assisted living, and independent living all under one roof. So So it's a full continuum, so.
So they never have to move.
Never have to move, just go down the hall. And that feeds right into the parking count, the dramatic change from a standard calculation to what we're proposing. We're doing almost the exact same building over in the West Metro, improved this out, shared with the Design Commission earlier today. We ran a study with some active properties that we have that provide assisted living and independent living in the West Metro as well. Combined between the two facilities, about 120 to 140 units total from two administrators, both running at full capacity. Ask those administrators how many residents in their building bring cars that they use. Combined between those two properties was 4. So what they're using that underground parking for is basically storage. So if anybody wants to park a boat for the wintertime, we could probably accommodate that. So that really provided, in this other project, a lot of comfort in utilizing the underground parking more for staff parking, the overnight staff that stays to keep them secured. Not that we feel that there's any issues with parking on the surface.
You said there was how many units? There was only four vehicles? How many units?
Out of 120 to 140 total units. Only 4 vehicles provided by the residents. So, and again, you have 30, just running all these numbers, a lot of numbers in my head. So of the skilled units, those residents aren't going to be parking. The skilled resident count was, it was at 64 total. So 64 units out of that 141, those residents don't even have a car. So you can take that right off the top. Then you have 16 more AL memory care residents. They don't drive either. So you basically condense that count down to, let's see, what is it? About 90 or so units left. And what we're finding out of 120 to 140, we have 4 drivers on predominant sites. So what we find, the trend is becoming that residents are coming to us older, and in this transition, the adult children are finding this as a cause to remove the keys. So.
What about visitors? What do you got for parking for visitors?
Yeah,
Seem like there's
that's a very good concern because we want visitors. And so what we try and do is focus those visitor parking stalls right to the main, right at the front. So on the site plan, that kind of circle right outside the porte cochere is where those visitors would park. So.
Now, the elevation, I know because of the hole there, how high will the tallest part of the building be in relationship to County Road C there by the bridge? Do you have any guess on that?
Yeah, I'd have to see an elevation cut, but, it's 40 feet from the surface, and I think it was,
I saw
6 or
40
8
feet
down. So,
earlier.
To answer that question?
yeah, from the road, if you took the road elevation, I would guess maybe 32 to 35, maybe, off the
That would
cuff.
project above County Road C.
Correct.
Okay.
But the 3-story, remember, is on the south side of the property,
The
so.
deepest part, right?
Yep,
Right.
yep.
Because I know that was kind of concerned, because I was at the open house meeting,
Mhm.
and that was kind of a concern that people had, was the height of the building, that they didn't want to project too far to the ground.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, and that was one of the things that we liked about being able to flip this and keep the single-story portion on the front of the property, so. And try and keep it more fitting to the overall neighborhood, so.
Where are deliveries made for supplies?
Yeah, deliveries come through the west curb cut, right into that center part, right in the middle. So the 4 residents that have cars would continue on and come to the south, but the truck delivery drop-off would be right there in the middle. That goes into a central kitchen, connected to central storage and food supply, and kind of runs a main artery to the multiple levels of care and support kitchens to serve food to the various levels of care in the building.
Do you know what the elevation change is on that drive on the west side coming up to C?
About 6 feet.
How would that I don't think that would be very conducive to pulling out on County Road C very easily.
Reese Denegal is with ISG. They're the civil engineer that's been working on the project. So.
And so we actually had a
Yeah.
meeting with Ramsey County last week and kind of discussed through this whole project with them.
If you could speak closer to the microphone.
Sure,
please.
if that can hear me a little bit better. So we met with Ramsey County last week and discussed these accesses with them. So we're actually trying to come off of County Road C a little bit flatter and then dive down as you get towards that lower level underground parking. So the deliveries there is some grade change that's just inevitable in order to get down to that area. So the actual unloading area that's in the center of the building, that's going to be at the same finished floor as the actual building. And the building is pretty close to the same elevation or the finished floor, I should say, is very similar to what County Road C is. So we're within a half a foot if you kind of take the midpoint of the building itself. So as you're really going to see the bigger dive for elevation go as you get down to the underground parking stall area, because that's about 12 feet below finished floor.
Do you think they'll change the elevation of the bridge when they redo the light rail and that there?
They didn't provide any indication that they would. It sounded like they had enough clearance for that, and they weren't planning on replacing the bridge. Because that was brought up in our discussion with the county, just as far as being able to see up and over that bridge. They were just asking the question if we'd still have sight distance as the vehicles left.
Also, it's not light rail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes
It's a bus.
Bus, yeah.
the dedicated bus, which takes less space above.
And below.
Yep.
What would it require to get the parking spaces that, we're what, 140 short, I believe? Based on the normal requirements for a building this size?
Michael, what was your calc?
Chair and Commission, correct. It's based on the requirements. We're looking at a waiver of 145 spaces. You know, if this was a multifamily building of 141 units, this isn't something that staff would be entertaining and bring forward to you. I think where we have the comfort level and what the applicant is proposing is that we've seen other projects in Maplewood have similar situations, and they're bringing their experience. But we would recommend adding a condition, and again, this came up in the conversation during design review board, is adding a condition regarding proof of parking. So if you look at the site plan to the east here with the access drive, and you have the spaces that face east, there would be potential to show proof of parking. So again, that doesn't mean anything that's physically built on day one, but gives us a site plan if parking were to be added. If the city were to require additional parking spaces, how would that look like? And then that's something that we would have on file. That language already exists in the plan unit development, that if parking shortage develops, that they would be required to add parking, but we can take that extra step to have it visually shown how that would happen from day one. The other component, as our conversation has progressed tonight, in potentially adding a condition, is something regarding if the site building were ever converted from a senior housing facility to a multi-housing facility, that they would be required to come back to amend the PUD and meet parking requirements or something to that language. Not that that's something I necessarily foresee on this site, but we do know that there has been another building in Maplewood that did do a conversion that was independent senior living, not the kind of care that's being provided here. Vastly different project, but it was a senior building nonetheless that had been granted a parking waiver that functioned for that use, that converted to a multifamily building and is now short of spaces. So we can add another layer of what quote-unquote protection to the plan unit development for the city to have the ability to review if a conversion ever were to take place 40 years down the road.
My question back to the applicant once again is, what would it require for you to add those 140 spaces, it would take more land, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so the lot split that you're proposing is going to be coming pretty close to the existing parking that you're showing on this. And so then if you did a lot split that it would allow for that for future, that would be more conducive to reflecting our concerns about parking. And you would have, what, 17 acres? You would have a 7-acre parcel and a 10-acre parcel. Maybe you would have a 7.5 and a 9.5.
Yeah.
Chair and Commissioner, I just want to interject too. This plan unit development covers the entire 17 acres. So it is, and the applicant will speak to it once. I just want to interject that component so that when we look at potential proof of parking or additional parking that would have to be built, we fully, at least from the staff side, understand that it would likely occur on the church property and likely serve potential when that church is ultimately built, and that would be a shared parking situation for the two uses. But, so it's been our understanding that if parking had to be added to the site, yes, indeed, it would be on the church site, the future church site. But I'll turn it back to the applicant.
And my point is if that somebody else, if they sold that to somebody else, it would be more difficult.
The conditions still apply regardless of ownership, but point taken.
Bill?
Does this project affect our required affordable housing as put forth in the 2040 comprehensive plan?
Chair and Commission, not as proposed, I'm not aware of any affordability component to it, so the city does not have any requirements. It has goals for affordable housing
Okay.
that we're looking to achieve, but this would not work towards that
Well, we can
goal.
kind of treat it like a requirement because the Met Council will get mad at us if we don't comply. But
At this point, at least from the city's participation, it's not an affordable housing project.
yeah, okay, I can see that.
But you can live there.
You know, I didn't think ahead. That was a dumb question, so
Well, it's-
never mind.
Once you're there, they don't kick you out.
Yeah.
Once you're there, they don't kick you out.
In regards to the residents, and the majority of the residents are going to need primary care providers there. So we're going to have a lot of people coming and going who are employees. And I'm trying to factor that in. When you say max staff change, full occupancy would be 55? Is that saying there'd be 55 cars as people coming and going?
Yeah,
That's the
it's kind of an interesting equation. I was actually a little bit shocked. Again, we're doing the same almost exact same footprint out in the West Metro. Right now, it's under construction. If it would stop raining, it would be better under construction. And ran a calc on that, and so the building would employ about 150 people. The challenge in that, and what you need to understand is that there isn't 150 people that work in the building at one time. It's, we run 3 shifts a day. Your 8 to 5 staff is about 12 people. So we ran this out in this other project we're working on and figured out that, our max staff during the day, when your 8 to 5 staff members are there, is about 50, right around 50. So that's your max turnover. And what you're prepping for is, and I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Your turnover, your max turnover. So what you're looking for is your first shift switching with your second shift. Because everybody's got to park for about a 30 to 45 minute window. Correct. Is 50 people. So for about a half an hour, one time of the day, there's 50 staff cars. And then roughly, we'll just say roughly half of them will leave. So
You're going to have 100 staff cars with that, during that overlap time.
no, because your max staff at any given time is about 25.
Okay.
So 25 there, 25 coming in for 50, 25 leave, you're back down to 25. So,
That seems kind of inadequate for the number of people that you're saying is going to be housed here, because the only independent living is 29 units. So I'm assuming everybody else. is gonna
29
have
units of slips that won't be used. And that was my point to the other projects that we have active, is that, again, what we're finding the trend to be is that adult parents don't send their parents' cars to the facilities anymore.
I I understand that, but we're also, this is not just a housing area, we're also an employer.
Correct.
And employees are coming and going, and whenever there's employees coming and going, that increases dramatically traffic and parking needs and those kind of things, and we're given a big variance for parking needs with a number of employees coming and going and overlap.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and trust me, I've kind of toiled over this because, I got to leverage a budget against making sure that we've got the right amount of parking. So the way I've kind of approached it is this, is that if we have a max turnover of roughly 50 cars, underground we can park 62. So I could get all of the employee parking at peak, employee time under the garage with roughly 74 surface parking slips on the ground that could basically cater just to guests or resident parking. So we know even in a strong case that 20 cars by ILAL, it still leaves me 50 stalls for guests to come visit. We never at any one 30-minute increment would have 50 guests in the building at one time. So I appreciate the challenge because trust me, it's something that we've really kind of looked at. But we have we've got a lot of facilities that just have no cars in them. So
We have a couple projects like, establishments like that in the city. We don't have a problem with them.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that correct, Mike?
Chair and Commission, by and large, no, there hasn't been
Yeah.
any parking issues.
So I don't think the amount of parking is really an issue. That's just how I feel about it.
It's a warped number. It seems odd, when you say 140 units, you're like, well, how do you get away with that? How does that work? But again, recognizing that we've got 80 residents right out of the box that don't bring a car at all, so it starts to kind of put it in perspective as to what's really happening on site on a day-to-day basis. So.
I think the parking will work out very well. My own physical, when I'm looking at it, is that what you are saying is that if the reduction in the residence car, does it equal to additional space for emergency vehicles because of the age group of those people?
Emergency, I'm sorry?
Emergency vehicles coming in?
Yes.
Because of the age of this population we're talking about.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
that age are not using the parking, so they will need other
Yep.
form of transportation, you know what I'm saying?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
And-
so the front canopy is designed to bring ambulance through,
Yeah, how many at
Clear
one
as day.
time,
Yeah.
because if the adults are there, they can take care of their place. But
Yeah.
if they are not there, then you might need multiple, vehicles at the same time. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I still don't see the heightened demand. I still think we're gonna, yeah, I still think we're gonna find that,
You can always park on the grass too over in the fields.
yeah. Yeah, and again, we've fretted through this, and I think it's a successful. And as Michael kind of commented, we're on the, if it's not successful, we're on the hook to make it work. Because it's, then people won't come to work, people won't, want to be there, so.
Now, this, in the very thing there on County Road C, is that going to be a pit there that's going to hold the water there for the parking? Is that?
Yeah, it's a retention pond, yeah. So there's two of them, there's
How
one.
deep is that? Well, I was just thinking of the cars driving in there when I get drunk.
It's right in your neighborhood.
Put the boats there.
It varies between 4 and 8 feet,
Oh, okay, that's not very deep then.
No fishing.
no fish.
I think it's 4. 4 to 8 feet?
Yeah, I think on the right is the lower portion. Drops a little lower.
Chair and Commission, and it is a gradual decline. It's not just 4, then 8 feet.
And a lot of times they fence those in too, don't they typically too sometimes?
Chair and Commission, no, fire department has always given the direction that they don't want them fenced in. because if there is an issue there, it becomes a lot harder for the safety personnel to deal with it.
Crash through the gate, doing 98.
Just one, but typically, no, in Maplewood, you would not see them fenced in.
Okay. I know I've seen in the past, but
Present day, you would not. Yeah. Moving forward.
any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? I think we're questioned out.
Well, I really appreciate your feedback and questions, and, you know, as we kind of fret through this, and appreciate your time.
I'm excited about it. I think it'll be neat. I live on Clarence, just abutting to it there, so I think it'll be nice to have a nice building there and a place to park my stuff in the inside garage. And
There you go.
Your chickens can go visit.
Yeah. Ellen, Wayne, did you guys want to say anything?
My name's Elaine Cruz. I live at 1379 East County Road C, and my concern is about their secondary driveway. I've lived on County Road C since 1977, and I have seen traffic increase, I don't know, probably at least 5 or 10-fold since we moved in there. I don't know, is that traffic going one way or two ways out of there? Because if you go left, you come up that little hill on County Road C, and I know that even when people come out on Elm Street, there's issues with the traffic and not being able to see either east or west on County Road C. And I just am concerned that if there's a truck or a delivery vehicle that's coming there, and it's one of those big delivery trucks that deliver all your groceries with the big, semi-trailer on there, that how are they going to get in and out of that space?
I'm betting that driveway is real similar to where that goes in the gravel right now to the gardens.
You think?
Is that pretty close to where that is? Have you gone in there and turned around and driven to see how?
No, I don't drive, I walk.
Because I come in and out of there all the time, and if you're looking real close, it is sometimes hard, but if you look far enough, you can see pretty good coming
Well, and
out
I'm
there.
thinking about, I know the last thing that my mother wanted to give up was her car. She was 85 years old, and when she gave up her car, it was terrible. I mean, it was like, and I know people that have lived in these facilities, especially in the city, I think, where things are close. I mean, like if you go to church, say you went down to church at County Road C in 61, you'd get in your car and you'd drive down there. You'd want to have your car. And if you're 80 years old living in a facility, that your reflexes and your everything just aren't the same. So I'm thinking that if this is a secondary road, it should be made so it's a right-hand turn only, not left-hand turn, because you're coming across traffic. You've got the guardrail there. I don't know if that's that blocks it or anything, but I think that's just a consideration, something that I think that it should be, if it's going to be used as a secondary thing, it should be made so that it's only a one-way, not going cross-traffic. Because I know myself in the morning and in the evening, that traffic on County Road C is just, because Beam Avenue has all the stoplights on it, they're coming on County Road C. And another thing is, it says there's a pedestrian, looks like a pedestrian crossing or something over those two, I think. And I've got this one that came in the mail. And it says a pedestrian crossing. Now, is that going to be a bridge up and over, or a crossing up and over that, or is it just a walkway that's marked?
I think a walkway that's marked, wouldn't that be, no bridges?
Chair and Commissioner, it's indicating I believe the existing sidewalk that's already there, and just how
There's nothing that's going to designate that's a walkway or anything, other than the sidewalk?
Would be, I think it's shown as a straight.
Yes.
Crosswalk.
Okay. And also with the retaining pond along there, there's a lot of kids that bicycle along there and everything. And I know that there's a safety concern with, you know, being accessible if somebody should happen to fall in there or whatever, but there's a lot of kids and people walking along there and stuff with bikes and that sort of thing. I just think that, I know that fencing isn't probably the thing, but if there is just a fence along the one side or, you know, on the County Road C side or something. But anyway, that's all.
I think
Thank you.
It looks like they've got some vegetation and trees that are gonna be
Along
there,
the
too.
edge, so, okay, well.
That'll kind of fence that in a little bit with the.
But that's just my concerns, having lived there as long and see all the people that take advantage of getting onto the trail, you know, and everything and using that. I mean, I know that they go down the hill and onto the trail, but, and that'll be taken away with this, but,
Well, they'll be able to come down the driveway then, I think, cut over.
yeah, that's what they'll do.
Right.
Thank you.
Did you have anything, Alan, that you wanted to add, or? Okay. Did anybody else want to speak? Did you want to come up, John, and say anything, or?
I'm happy to answer any questions on behalf of the church. We're very excited about this project.
You want to come up to the mic there then, John, first?
Yeah, so I'm representing First Evangelical Free Church. We're very excited about this project. I think originally when we first started talking with Elam Care, it was us who approached them because we see it as a great adjacent ministry to what we do. And so we're very excited about it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, John. Okay, for none? You want to make a proposal?
I will.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, I don't want to be a motion hog, but, so the first one is a motion to approve the attached comprehensive plan amendment resolution, which approves a land use amendment from low-density residential to high-density residential and institutional for the 17.15 acre parcel located at 1534 County Road C East. This is illustrated in attachment 1 of our handout.
There's been a motion by Bill.
No further discussion, we're just gonna go into motions.
If you want to discuss something more?
Well, I still have concerns about the parking and stormwater retention.
Okay, we're just doing the lot division right now, right?
Lot division.
Right, yep.
Just the lot division.
No.
Okay.
It's the comprehensive plan amendment, not the lot division.
Okay. Bill's made a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Second by Lou. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing all ayes, approved. Second one, Bill?
Motion to approve the attached conditional use permit for a planned unit development resolution which approves a 4-story, 141-unit senior housing building to be constructed at 1534 County Road C East, as illustrated in attachment 2 of this document.
And I'll second that. And Fred wanted a discussion yet?
Well, I just think that the parking could be addressed better, and I think also that
That's-
stormwater retention pond could be, with additional size to the property, could be constructed in such a way it wouldn't be as much of a hazard.
Putting
It's
it
4 to 8 foot deep, right along County Road C.
in a different location, you mean?
Widen it out, move it, whatever the case may be. So, those are my concerns.
Okay.
Are you proposing an amendment?
I don't think you can on the,
No,
No, to my motion?
Motion, yeah.
I don't think you can you?
I can't.
Oh, you can, okay.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So,
I'm not going to vote in favor because of those things, so.
but you don't want nothing added?
Well, how can you add it? I don't
You
think
can
they don't have the land to do it.
No, because I'm pretty sure the reason in this division is because the breakdown is for the church to have so many acres for their parking too. So
Okay.
and that's, the shared parking is definitely going to be into that part of the parcel. And right now, they can park on the grass, so I'm not worried about the parking at all. But I can see your point about the retention pond a little bit.
Yeah, if it was a bigger parcel, you would have to, you could spread that retention pond out and make it shallower, I believe. 48 foot's pretty deep.
There's a motion on the
Sure,
floor.
come on to the mic then.
Just to clarify on the design of that, that won't be a wet pond. It'll be a dry pond for most of the time. So after it'll rain, it'll act as more of an infiltration basin rather than an actual wet retention pond. So that will be designed to drain out in 48
Kind of like a
hours.
rain garden?
Yeah,
Yeah.
similar.
Okay.
So within 2 days of a rainfall, it's designed to empty.
Say that again?
48 hours percolation.
It's a 48-hour percolation,
Okay.
so within 2 days, it should be dry.
At what rate of rain? 1, 2 inches of rain or?
That'll actually be any type of rain event, and so that's going to be regulated by the state. And so basically, we just have to hit our water quality volume, so we'll have, an area that'll be, 18 inches to 2 feet deep, that'll actually infiltrate into the ground. The rest will act more as detention rather than retention, so we're just going to restrict the outlet so it'll drain down in that 48-hour time span.
What about John? Okay, there's been a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes. I could hear you over there. Alan, did you say aye?
Yes.
Did you? Okay.
I heard it.
Did you? He's mumbling. Okay.
He was subtle.
Okay, that's all, hearing all ayes, this is approved. Well, I guess I didn't close did anybody else want to speak? I guess forgot that, sorry. Nobody else wanted to speak. We closed that anyhow, so want to make sure we cover the bases. So this is just a recommendation by
We're not
us.
done.
Chair and Commission, you still have one motion to consider, item C.
C. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Motion to approve the lot division request to divide the parcels located at 1534 County Road C East and 1448 County Road C East into 2 lots for the senior housing project and future church site. This lot division is subject to the following conditions 1 and 2.
Been a motion by Bill. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, this passed. So this then is good by us and on the 28th of October? Okay. Thanks, guys. And girl, lady. Any new business?
Chair and Commission staff does not have any additional business for you tonight.
Unfinished business, visitors' presentations, commissioners' presentations, September 9th, Commissioner Arbuckle, final adoption of the 2040 comp plan and the North End Vision Plan adoption, and both were approved.
Were you there?
I had a camera there, yes, I was there.
Okay,
On the 28th, City Councilman Kempe,
I'll be there.
and you'll be there take care of C, D, E, F.
Yep.
Good deal, thanks, Bill. And then the staff presentations.
Chair and Commission, nothing further for you tonight.
Okay, and then I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.